So welcome to Northern Powerhouses, our business success stories series of interviews, where we discuss with local business leaders their backgrounds, their successes and challenges, and what's really driving them forwards. And today I'm delighted we have back with us Louise Frankland, who's the CEO at Mansfield Pollard. So Louise, firstly, welcome. Thanks so much for coming back. And if you'd like to introduce yourself and Mansfield Pollard to the audience and what you do and how you help people, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Thank you for that. And good afternoon. It's great to be back. Can't believe it. A year's gone by since we last had our conversations.
Yes.
So yes, I'm the CEO and co-owner of Mansfield Pollard. The business has been around since 1866. We're a Bradford-based manufacturer specialising in air movement, anything to do with the movement of air across the healthcare sector, education sectors, data centres, acoustics. And we've certainly over the last few years had some really exciting years and are starting to really bed into what will be year 3 of our 5-year strategic growth plan.
Wonderful, wonderful. As we said, we spoke last year, and I'm keen to know what's changed for you in the business since we last spoke.
Lots has changed, majority positive, I'm pleased to say. We have navigated some challenges, of course. We've seen supply chain volatility, pricing and shortages, material shortages. We've seen a cost of living crisis and how we can support staff members, which I'm sure we'll talk about, from finances to well-being. Obviously, we've come out of a post-COVID era and come out of lockdown. And still some of the same old challenges for us when you grow at the pace we're growing at and wanting to remain embedded within Bradford. Finding, additional manufacturing space, people, etc. It all adds to the fun of the journey that we're on.
Yes, I can imagine. Growth always feels great, but it comes with its own challenges that
Indeed.
It's what most of us would want to have. So it's not something that we don't want, but it's understanding that it isn't an easy ride. It's normally a bumpy ride.
It is, and making sure that, as you grow, you're structuring properly for that growth, whether it is investing in existing people, bringing new people on board. As I said, a lot of the products we produce, particularly for the data center market and acoustics markets, are large products, large units that are the size of 4-bed detached houses. So when you're manufacturing a lot of those, that means you need a lot of space. And finding that industrial space, as I touched on last time within Bradford, has its challenges.
Goodness, yes. When you put that into context, building things that big, clearly you need very big spaces in which to.
We do, and we've about 100 of them over the next 18 months to build. So it's not just then the production of it and the scaling for the production of it, it's where do you then store them so that they're ready when they're going to site. But we're getting there, and certainly feel that we've got a good base in Bradford now, and things have started to ease, as I touched on in terms of some of those challenges around supply chain, coming out of post-COVID and Brexit, and seeing that volatility not just in physical material supply, but in raw material prices as well. That's been quite a challenge to navigate.
Yeah, I've seen many businesses with that, and it can be specific types of material, can't it, that go on sort of multi-times.
It can, particularly sort of electrical components, chip conductors, those types of things, which I think we've seen. If anybody's got a new car, you've seen car lead times and all sorts of things there go out. We've seen that with fans as an example, which is a key component within our product that used to be on a 2 to 4 week lead time. And last year we were stretching out to over a year, 52, 55, 60 weeks. So we've had to really look at how we design and manufacture our products to enable us to add them in at the last minute. So that's the last part that goes in. And of course, at the same time, trying to make sure that we're balancing what has been quite a surge in material price increases, fuel costs, etc., and how you navigate that with your clients, because you've got to remain competitive and keep that competitive edge. But of course, when your supply chain material prices are increasing at the rate they have, we've had to be quite careful about how we work through that.
I've said to many people I work with and don't work with that sort of, because of the volatility, that now is a good time to put our prices up in many ways, because there's not an expectation. It's very difficult to say, well, how could you possibly do that with this current situation? And I'm not suggesting do it just for the sake of it, but it's that rebalancing often that I often find businesses have failed to put the prices up in line with costs for quite a long time, and so the gap has become really large.
I think it can do. You're right. If you're not careful, it's a very difficult, intricate balance of there's a market price there and an expectation, and you can't go much beyond that. Yeah. But actually, it's also with a fantastic procurement team here and the head of procurement and that team working a lot closer with suppliers and really building on those relationships and understanding, well, what can we do collectively together? And do we need to perhaps commit to certain product lines, certain material lines and bring that in and hold stock, which again has cash implications. But some of those different types of strategies have really helped us to move through what's been, and we definitely feel we're at the right side of it now, particularly on steel prices, aluminium, nickel. We've seen real volatility there, where steel in particular, you used to get a fixed price for 30 days or 14 days. We had probably the middle of last year where you were getting steel prices fixed for 12 hours and that was it. So real challenges as a manufacturer to make sure that we got that right. So a lot of work spent there.
That must be really quite hectic, because I can imagine then the requote and this is right. Oh my goodness.
It was, and balancing that with your customers as well. What you don't want to be doing is going back to a customer and saying, I'm going to hold it for 12 hours. So somebody's got to take the risk somewhere. And it's getting that right. Right.
I can imagine. And have you seen any sort of organisational challenges as you've grown? A bit. I always find there's
definitely. I think we talked last time. Culture and values is a big thing here. It's part of the recruitment process, the induction process, and it flows right the way through individuals, one-to-ones, appraisals, meetings. That's very much about people working the right way, not just having the skills to do a job, but operating in line with culture. And naturally, as businesses scale, you've got to work harder to maintain that culture. And you're bringing new people in as you're growing and getting them inducted into the business in the right way. And then I think we saw, off the back of COVID, people returning to work. What did that look like? We went from everybody being in the office environment 5 days a week to suddenly everybody went at home to lockdown. And now we're finding that rebalance of hybrid working. So in the office 3 days, home 2 days. But as a manufacturer, that can be quite tricky because we've got an entire factory shop floor that need that interaction with office staff. It might be we're looking at CAD drawings or engineering solutions or design. So we've had to find new ways of working together there with an amount of hybrid working, because I think a lot of people that experience lockdown didn't necessarily want to go back to an office 5 days a week. But you've got to be careful that when people start doing that hybrid working, that the communication doesn't break down between the teams, because that is ultimately fundamental to the way the business operates. And then also we've seen as a board a lot more people having challenges around well-being, around mental health. There's been some real knock-on effects there. So again, how we can support them as a business, and that's before we threw in cost of living crisis, fuel costs, etc. So there's definitely been some interesting, unexpected challenges that we've worked quite hard on.
Goodness. So, and can you share with some of the wins that you've had? You're clearly growing, so things are obviously going in the right direction.
Yeah, we have a big one around people, I think, as we annually do an engagement survey. You're never going to have everybody engaged into your business, of course you're not. But best scores this past year, we've had 90% engagement levels across the business, 92% saying they feel proud to work for Mansfield Pollard, 90 feeling valued. Some of that is possibly how we supported them through cost of living. That was the whole debate last year around pay rises as a business is a really tricky one. Where do you balance that with inflation? We started saying, should we do percentages for individuals? But is that fair if you're comparing a senior management role to a factory level role? You could argue factory level need more support. Do they need less? So in our case here, what we did was just said, actually, everybody's feeling the same pinch around fueling your car or loaf of bread or food, etc. So we just did 2,500 across the board, £2,500 for everybody, because that felt the fair way to do it. So supporting those individuals through that, and particularly implementing new training, support, seminars around mental health and well-being. That will have helped hugely, I think, on the engagement side. We had a huge year for awards last year. So we were the Bradford Means Business of the Year, Employer of the Year, which was fantastic. We entered into the SME Nationals down at Wembley, and we won Business of the Year down there. We've had SME in Constructing Excellence. We've had a real success story there, and a recognition, I think, to the team of the work that they've put in. And then fortunately for us, our second manufacturing site, some additional space became available probably towards September last year. So we took another 45,000 square foot manufacturing space. That takes us now to 250,000 square foot of manufacturing and storage space, which we desperately needed. So we have seen, some real successes in. I can't believe it's been 12 months. Actually, it's gone so fast. It feels like we sat down 3 months ago, but you start to look back at quite what's changed and happened in the business. And it's been a great 12 months.
Wonderful. So great to hear. And how good would you say you are at celebrating your wins and successes?
We're getting better. I think when you're on a journey, you keep going, don't you? But as a senior leadership team, we have, at the start of every year, we do our business planning 1 year, 3 year, and we set quarterly reviews in there, and they're in the diary and they happen regardless. Right. And part of that quarterly get together is to look retrospectively what we've done prior quarter and what's been achieved, also what's been missed, because you can't do everything, and then look forward as to what we want to deliver over that next quarter. And once we've done that as a senior leadership team, we then have what we call a company town hall. And it's really simple. We just get everybody together in the factory and we'll talk about, successes, what's going well, where the business is up to, how we're performing. And then if I'm honest, we get 100 Domino's pizzas in and we just fill the boardroom with pizzas and everybody loves that. Last time I nearly forgot the pizzas, but we had several people saying, "You're getting pizza, aren't you?" So we sat and all had pizza and a good chat. So within the business on a regular basis, we've got that. And then we'll always try and have, be it team events outside of that, awards, Christmas parties with partners where you can get everybody in the business and their partners together. Gives you a real chance to let everybody let their hair down a little bit and thank everybody for it. Brilliant.
Yes, I was talking to somebody yesterday about how important it is to celebrate, because it's almost like putting that into the bank account, because when the difficult times come, we're going to withdraw some of that.
Yeah, that's what you sort of sit back on and think, actually, we're doing okay.
Yes.
And you can't do everything. So I think celebrating those successes, it then gives you focus to say, right, what's next? Where do we want to go? What do we want to do? Because there'll always, particularly on a business plan annually, there'll always be things that fall behind, because that's just the nature of being in business.
Yes, no, that makes absolute sense. And what would you say you've learned from the wins and the challenges, over this last year?
I think more than ever, that phrase of planning for the worst and hoping for the best is really critical, certainly as a board, sitting back and saying, look, we're hoping this is what's going to happen, but we're going to plan here just in case, has been critical for us. I think reading the market, seeing what's happening in the markets, is giving you that foresight to look at, particularly market specific for us, data center, healthcare, education, refurbishment. You can see patterns of, certainly when the economy started to slow, refurbishment of units started to grow because people were looking at refurbing rather than buying new necessarily. Data center is infrastructure, so that's continued to grow at a phenomenal pace. So really reading the markets and making sure that you're thinking about, right, from a sales side, which is my background, where best do we spend our time focusing on which markets with which people. And again, as I've said all the way through, is just keep investing in your people, keep supporting them, training, morale, culture, because it genuinely is the people that look after the business.
Yeah, 100%. That makes absolute sense. And if you remember when we spoke last time, I love to sort of pick up any favourite quotes or sayings that you might find yourself doing, whether it's ones we've said last time, or is there anything that you catch yourself saying on a regular basis at the moment?
I mentioned it last time, and it's still my favourite. I tell my children all the time, which is Audrey Hepburn, which is nothing is impossible. The nature of the word says I'm possible. And we really try and have that approach throughout the business. I don't want to hear we can't do something, that's not possible, we can't do this, we can find a way. We've got a brilliant team of experts in a plethora of different areas here, from procurement, engineering, estimating, sales, finance. I mean, I could keep going, but between us, we'll always find a solution. And I think that level of drive, when you drive that through the business, it's almost infectious. People come and believe that, well, actually, we can do this. We can go wherever we want to go. And we're still a small team as such. You know, we're a board of 5. Brian and myself on the business between us, and that enables us to be really agile and really flexible. So if we want to make a decision about a new market or a new product, or, you know, as long as there's a business case there, we can all get behind it and go, yeah, we're going to do this. You know, you can't chop and change, you've got to be careful, but it enables us to really be really agile to the market conditions. And I think particularly given the volatility in the markets the last 12, 18 months, that stood us in good stead.
Brilliant. And thinking about the business grows, your role must have changed over this last year as the business has grown. What else have you learned about yourself over this last 12 months?
I'm very resilient. I knew I was resilient, but I'm very resilient. I'm very driven, and you know, we all have days where you go home and it's been a tough day. And I always say that to people here: as long as you're having more good days than bad, then we're on the right side of it. But we have had days where we've gone back and not had the right space, or this, you know, the material volatility and the price volatility and part shortages was a really stressful time for us as a board, thinking, how can we get this product in at the right price, turned around and back out the door again? So you've got to, you always think to yourself, don't sweat the small stuff. And if you can't control it, then I've got to try not to worry about it. And I think having that focus and continuing to work with individuals to find a route forward has been the right way for us. I think if you're tired, that's probably the last 12 months I've had moments where I've been tired, and you think, oh, this is hard. But that's what it is as a business owner, and as a board of directors, that's our role, to make sure that, you know, we are thinking about this stuff, we are taking the business in the right direction, and not just because, yes, we've got this target of taking the business to 50 million and growing it profitably, but also because of the individuals that you employ. You know, with 150 staff members there, you have a responsibility to those staff and those families and their commitments, to make sure that you're doing the right thing in the business, but also by them. So yeah, very resilient, very driven, and just keep looking forwards. Yes,
brilliant. I'm interested in your opinion. I was at an event, I think last week, it was an investment event, but one of the speakers, it was more a sort of a conversation than a presentation. But one of the speakers was the ex-CTO of Microsoft. And one of the things she said, there was several things that were fascinating, but one thing she said was, when they recruit C-suite senior execs in the US, they actually test them on their ability not to do stuff. And I found that quite fascinating. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
It's interesting because recruiting is really difficult, isn't it? You know, you're always seeing the best version of somebody, the version that they want to show. And I think anything where you can look at perhaps what can't they do, or some of the things we implement around culture and values, give you a much broader picture of somebody. We're similar when you get to sort of management level. We often do, you know, 1, 2, sometimes 3 stage interviews, but we'll also try and do something social, because I quite like to see somebody in more of a relaxed environment, of just going out for a lunch or going out for a dinner or going out for a coffee, because then you start to see a true individual, as opposed to sitting in a boardroom opposite each other answering the standard, you know, the standard questions. It's always difficult with people. It will probably always remain one of our biggest challenges, is finding the right people and bringing that talent into the business, whether it's locally or, you know, I think, again, with hybrid working, that's helped, that if people aren't having to travel to a place of work all day, every day, and you're only doing maybe 3 days in the office, that means people are more willing to look at commuter distances, because they're not doing it day in, day out, or flexible working, traveling in and out outside of, you know, high sort of traffic hours, that sort of thing. We still need better transport links into Bradford, and we're still hoping our government will do that at some point. But it is undoubtedly one of the biggest challenges is people. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely makes sense. So what does the future look like for you guys, and what do you see as the main challenges, if any, as you grow?
I think I'm hoping with the additional space we've taken now at our second site that will see us through for the next few years. I'd like ideally to have us on one site at some point rather than split across two. We've talked about people. I think really this next year we're continuing to grow in the refurbishment markets in healthcare, launching a new product called MVHR, which is around mechanical ventilation, heat recovery. And that's really about working in the education sector. There's a lot of work and recognition post-COVID that there needs to be better ventilation in school environments.
Yeah.
So we see that as a big target for us.
Yes.
Continuing on our sustainability journey, we've been doing that the last few years now. We are carbon negative, so we offset double the amount actually of carbon that we consume. But there's been a lot of work in the business on changing practices, upgrading machinery. You know, one of the latest machines in the factory consumes 1/10 of the power that the older machines did, and it's also about 8 times faster. So continue to invest in the business that way, and making sure that, and that's not just because our customers want us to be, you know, have green credential and be more sustainable. It's because there's a real passion within Mansfield Pollard, particularly in manufacturing, to make sure that we are doing the right things and again operating in the right way. So very much pushing that forward. And I think if anything around the data center markets is not growing too fast, because the market is growing at such a pace that we've got to make sure that we do this methodically, step by step. Growing a business fast and bringing in lots of people and taking on lots of space eats cash. And it's a great problem to have, you know, when there's lots of growth opportunities there, but it's making sure that we do it in the right way.
Absolutely. It's rare. It does happen occasionally, but it's rare to find a business where growth creates cash. It's like that's the unicorn, really, isn't it? But
it is, and it's that catch-22 where, again, with regards to people, you want to structure for growth. So bring those people in and then grow, because that's the right way to do it. But that's often you're taking a gamble there. Is it going to come? You know, we're going to bring these people in and we're going to take on, especially when you're taking on additional factory space. And that's a big commitment for us. So it's just making sure, again, we're reading the markets right and we're planning as far ahead as we can. But as I said, we are year 3 of our 5-year journey. And so far we're hitting where we need to be. So we can't complain.
Wonderful. And are there any sort of new initiatives that you'll be launching this year that we should be keeping an eye out for?
We've got a big push and focus this year on well-being and mental health. We had a fabulous chap in, Martin Roberts, that does a talk about a walk in his shoes. He's a Hillsborough survivor. And talks about his own mental health challenges and where he finds himself sort of 5-6 years ago. So we brought him in to do that and start talking about mental health and well-being more within the workplace, because it's still, particularly in manufacturing where you've got a lot of males, it's still not talked about often, and it's really important. And as part of that now, we're introducing wellbeing action plans. So that's where every individual, we start talking about how they're feeling, what are the signs if somebody's not coping, how can we support them as a business. So that will be a big one for us. And then on the business side, we need more machinery. We need to continue to make sure that we're investing in the right tools, in the right people, and ultimately that will then drive the sales, which in turn then drives more product development for us to go into other markets. So lots to do. Another busy 12 months, I'm sure.
Well, that we'll definitely have to catch up again in 12 months and just see how this is going. If that's okay with you. And just for anyone watching, what's the best way if they would like to get in touch with you or the company? What would be the best way to do that, Louise?
Either way, pick up the phone. Some people just like to, pick up the phone. You can ring, you can ask for me, you can ask for anybody here. You can email in. We have a sales at Mansfield Pollard. We have a Lou at Mansfield Pollard address. But by all means, reach out. Certainly in the sort of Bradford, West Yorkshire area in manufacturing, we try and have a close-knit team, because 9 times out of 10, what somebody's experiencing in one business, I guarantee somebody else has in another, and you don't have all the answers, so you need to be able to reach out to people to get advice and support. So yeah, do that.
Wonderful. Well, we obviously wish you very well for this next year coming, and I'm sure there'll be lots of successes and growth of the business. And thanks again for taking the time to speak to us.
Oh, no problem. Any opportunity. We love talking about what we're doing and where we're up to. So thank you.
No, thanks.